Alright, welcome to Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin. This is going to be a brief overview of the game so far, the mechanics, whatnot. I have about 23 hours in the game so far. Came out Friday, figured I'd give it a review. All of those hours have been streamed over on Twitch, by the way. I'll put my links in the description below as per usual. This is more going to be the mechanics of it, what I think of it, and really some overview. So if you never played Monster Hunter Stories 1, which I'm among that group because it came out in the US for the Nintendo 3DS 6 months after the Switch came out. So, and then it was ported as a mobile game, but I never play mobile games really. So unfortunately, the first one was a hard miss. I've basically been describing it as Monster Hunter Pokemon, and I can actually demonstrate why in a hot second here. Just hop to anywhere in the world. One load screen later. Maybe I should pause for that. I have that ability for these. I mean, it's a recording, not streaming, so I can. But for this one at least, every other one of my videos on here has been unedited. Might as well give you the full experience. But yeah, this is why it is... while yes, you are fighting monsters as per usual in a Monster Hunter game, you also tame them, and they act as your Pokemon. You can see in the lower right, my party. So I was super psyched for the concept, but I never really ended up getting into it because, again, it came out over here after the Switch did. So when it comes to just moving around, whatever, you go around the world map. Flight comes in midway in the game before you have this. You have to actually run on the ground. And whichever monster you're riding is actually entirely dependent on which monster you decide is your lead monstie. This is also the one that will show up at your side at the start of combat. So if I swap to, say, Zamtrios here, well, now I have Zamtrios with his... Honestly, I love his walk animation. But... And so you have your monsters, and then combat, go ahead and demonstrate just by running into him here, runs on a simple double rock paper scissors. Sometimes he'll give you something useful like that, and once you've gotten far enough, you'll notice in the lower left too, I can just fast forward combat. That only happens after you've been through the area and you've actually gotten a significant degree stronger than the monsters here. This is the first area, so I'm stronger than them 20 hours in. But they work on a basic rock, paper, scissors you see here. And then in addition to that, each monster also has, there's 3 different weapon types. Blunt, pierce, and slashing. Slashing, unlike the regular Monster Hunter games, I suppose I should start there. Unlike regular Monster Hunter games where there's 14 different weapon types now, in this there's only 6. Greatsword, sword and shield, hammer, hunting horn, bow, and gun lance. 2 for each of the 3 types. Greatsword and sword and shield are slashing. Hammer and hunting horn are blunt, much as they are in regular. And then bow and gun lance are pierce. I have not used the gun lance at all to date, nor have I used the sword and shield. But I've used the bow, greatsword, and then hammer and hunting horn. You have skills, which is how you'd start doing the, because you see some of the, at least slang terms that people recognize in the skill list here. And these all depend on your kinship, which is sort of a gauge that builds up over time as you fight. And so when you run into, I'll run around to combat here. So if you do, like, technical beats speed, it's technical power and speed are the 3 other ones, aside from those. This is sounding a lot more complicated than it actually is. But basically, you're playing 2 simultaneous games of rock, paper, scissors at all times. We're actually going to have you not do that so I can show something else. So you'll have what's called head-to-heads here. And that's where these really matter, the rock, paper, scissors circle here. Power beats technical, beats speed, beats power. I disagree with how this works, and I think it should operate in the other direction. But that's just me, and I didn't make the game. So as you go through, in addition to fighting those heads-to-heads, if you and your monstie, because that's what they call the befriended monsters, it's same thing, so if you hear that, that's what that means, target the same monster with the same attack type, and it wins the head-to-head, you will instead do this double attack. This is your best friend in this game, bar nothing. It fills up your kinship gauge a lot, which, again, as we established, is what you need for skills. And it'll also let you do kinship moves. We'll get to that later. And it's, in addition to that, if you do a double attack on a monster, it skips their turn if they lose. Normally, if it's just a normal head-to-head, even if you win, they still get some form of attack off on you. It did 1 damage to me because I'm, high level in a low level area. But there will always be some damage unless you do either a double attack like that or a kinship move, which again we'll get to later. They're basically your big ultra whammies. And near as I can tell, they're monster specific, but again, I've not exhaustively tested that, so I couldn't really say for sure. Much like how there are a bunch of unique and not so unique walk animations. I didn't mean to quick heal, but I did. I healed my 1 HP of loss. Again, flying you get later in the game, and it's basically just nice because it lets you dodge combat you don't want to deal with. So that's how you fight monsties. Well, monsters, because they're not befriended yet. I never actually fought a Kelpie in this game. Anyway, wild ramblings aside, next question. Well, if that's how you fight monsters, how do you get monsters? Long story short, you rob their nests. So, robbing a nest is a lot easier in this game because it's a mechanic. Yeah, you can tell I haven't exhaustively cleared out the start area. Pretty bad of me, I know. But you'll run into these things called dens. You'll have to go into a bunch of areas that function as dens as part of the story too, so don't feel like you need to run through everything. They'll come in different shapes and colors. All those gray ones are normal dens. Periodically, a golden one here will spawn. That's a rare monster den, which gives you a chance to get better versions of the monsters. We'll get into that when I actually go in there and show it off. But other than that, it's not too wildly different from Monster Hunter, as long as you're accepting that it's rock, paper, scissors instead of quick time events. So anyways, you go into these dens, and I really should start skipping these. So from now on, I am going to try to remember to hit the pause button every time there's a load screen, so that we'll be able to skip the loads, guys. Because you shouldn't have to see that. You're not watching me live. You're watching me after the fact. And why shouldn't you enjoy the perks of that? So as you'll notice, there are sometimes monsters inside the dens, sometimes there's some guarding the spot, and yes, different monsties have different abilities. So for example, I have this Velocidrome. You get him as part of the starting, as part of the story. He's your quote-unquote first monstie. Spoilers. Spoilers for the first 20 minutes of the game, I'm sorry. But each one has different abilities. And so inside dens you can't fly, and in some areas you can't fly. So you'll need other ways to get to some areas. Yes, they have the Bullfangos as per normal, but every den you go into, be it a rare, normal, event, or ever den, there's an asterisk. That's a fancy term we'll get into, but it's the dens that have stone pillars. And the difference is, these dens, like the one I just went in, the rare den and regular dens, they all spawn and leave as per, like, just every time you enter and exit an area, it shuffles them. Like, this rare den might not be here. Like, if I had left and come back, this rare den probably wouldn't be here. It might be because, well, they can spawn in the same spots. That doesn't mean they always will. But, and some of the regular dens might be rare dens next time I come in, so on and so forth. So I don't actually need to be sneaking up to this. I could just run up to it. So as you get to every den, they have an egg pile. You can hunt it for here, and Nibiru will give me a thing. Doesn't really smell like much, and it's light. The two categories are smell and weight. The heavier it is, the better. The more it smells, the better. And And so, since this is just a whatever and we're in a rare den, we're not going to settle for that. Occasionally you get gold, and that'll typically indicate kind of stinky, don't you thinky, and it's light, so like it's a better smell quality than it normally is. I'm pretty sure that's a cut coup egg too. That's just something you get used to. And then there's the golds, and then there's rainbow as well for the super rare. But mostly I don't think the weight changes from this. I don't think weight can. I think that's just the monster in general. And eventually, if you harass this too much, which I think I'm going to do, yep. It wakes up, it gets mad. You can juke it sometimes. I've actually had them run the other way. But if they wake up, they'll attack you. And most importantly here, you still get the egg. I'm just going to quick finish this. You've already seen combat. So yeah, once you've gotten really strong for the area, you can just do this and combat's over. But sometimes you can juke them out, but you know, when you defeat monsters, you get parts. You still need those parts for gear. Like, you can't just, you know, avoid combat, gather eggs. So yeah, like as you can see, I still have this Velocidrome egg in my hands. And so for here, you can't go back onto your Monstie that I've found for whatever reason. You know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you can. Hold still. Yeah, like the option doesn't exist while you're carrying an egg. Silver lining, though, is once you reach the edge of that den area again, you can just straight leave, and then it's auto-transported to your egg carton. So unlike, you know, Monster Hunter where you had to run to a thing and drop it off, now it's just, okay, yep, it's in your part. And so you're good to get in to whatever. I actually haven't seen Ursilla's walk yet. I just recently got it. Okay. About what I expected. But yeah, and so then there are these Everdens where, unlike the other ones, that's new. It's probably from Startling to Kelby. But, where it's like, there are these Everdens. They have certain materials that you can't get otherwise. Bottle caps. They're important because we're actually playing Fallout, not Monster Hunter. No, I'm kidding. But there's basically they're used for other upgrades and like not normal currency stuff. They're the alternate currency of this game. Like they're what you do to get your Monstie stable expansions and a few other things. So you get them thus far. I've heard there's other ways to get them in the end game, but for me so far, not being in the end game, despite 24 hours, 23, 24, I'm going to keep saying 24 because it's probably going to be 24 by the time I actually have a recording of this that I like. But yeah, flying so like here, you can't get to where I am right now without flying, I don't think. I don't see vines. I don't see, yeah. That's probably somewhere important. But yeah, because I don't see a way up here without that. There's no vines. Oh no, there is a jump. Oh yeah, no, you have to go there as part of the story. Never mind. Yeah. So you could, if you have a like jump Monstie, which you do by default as long as you have the Velocidrome, you could just jump your way up there, and that's what you're gonna have to do before you get flying. And yes, every time you run into an area where it's like, if there's a Monstie that could help us here, Nibiru will do that, and you'll get the option while you're at it. I can actually demonstrate here too, to say, hey, you want to change to the Monstie that can help you here. Like that'll pop, like that exclamation mark will pop up, and then it'll auto pop you to the Monstie in question. And then with most, you have to hit the button B on Xbox controllers, circle on PlayStation controllers, whatever it is on a Steam controller. And I don't know the keyboard shortcut because keyboards don't have that form. But yes, I use a controller. I'm playing on PC, but I'm using a PlayStation controller. So swimming is the one you don't have to push a button. Every other one, there'll be a button prompt, and then you hit it, and you do the ability. That's how you navigate. So the combat is very simple. It's also very unforgiving. Because even where I'm at right now, I can actually hop to that area real quick, and I will pause this load screen. Another thing that's nice is at any time you can hit start, hit triangle on a PlayStation controller, Y, Xbox, so on and so forth. And every single fast travel place you've found and unlocked you could just hop directly to at any point in time, as long as you're out in the open. So there are monsters here, for example, that I will fight. I'm not doing it right now, but like for the sake of the argument, I'm saying that I could fight, and absolutely would fight. And if I get the system correctly, like if I know their tells, I know what type of attacks they'll launch at what time, because which one of the rock, paper, scissors of red, green, and blue they use varies depending on if they're enraged. Some monsters that can fly will typically do a different type of attack while flying. And so if you read them and do the system correctly, pretty strong ifs there, but if those happen, you can go, like, even where I'm at right now, like, again, if I read a monster right and I do everything correctly, no damage, because I just stun lock, because, again, so long as you do head-to-heads on a 1-to-1 fight there, and you have the correct type of monster, you're doing the correct type of attack, they lose all their turns, and then I could take no damage. Conversely, however, if I screw it up, I could get wiped easily at this point. Like, you have, like, again, my health is 183. You know, the only thing with less health than me is the Velocidrome at 176. Oh, well, and the Nerscylla, but the Nerscylla is also 2 levels behind, so grain of salt that. But your enemies are at this point, and I'm actually over leveled for this area, but only by a couple levels, so I can't do the quick finish here, but I'm higher level than the companion they give you, and this was the first time in the game I made that happen. They were usually like 3-4 levels ahead of me. I was 3-4 levels ahead of him. So excuse me. Like, it's not that I'm underleveled for the area, though I honestly thought that was the case until I saw some of my video people I watch. Shout out to RX Gaming, mostly for that one. Where it's like, no, they're in this area and they're like rocking 25s. And I'm like, okay, so I guess I'm the right level. But the system is very unforgiving. Like, this green Narg, if I attack the Mizu, like, using the system correctly, you can get a basically flawless victory. Unless they do something I'm going to gripe about later. But if you use the system incorrectly, you just get wiped and die. Just, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, if you don't use it, you have to use the system or you will lose. Funny that. Engage with the game's mechanics or fail to play the game. But yeah. And once you get your Monsi eggs, you can... I should probably have demonstrated that, because I'm absolutely not going to pass up 2 rare dens in the area I'm currently at. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. This might actually give you some higher level combat. So the other things, which I did not demonstrate, okay, and I'm not going to now apparently, is if you run into the back of them, is there a speed type, so I need technical. Zamtrios. I might, well, let me know if you want to see this in the future. I'll include this fight, but yeah, as you'll see, 500 damage. So that was enough damage to kill both me and my Zamtrios. And you'll see how little that is on their meter. Also, part breaking exists in this and functions basically the same as it would. And yes, sometimes, even though he's a technical monster, sometimes he'll use speed. And see, this is what I'm talking about. He has now lost 1/3 of his health in one strike that he got off. That is how ridiculous this is. Shit. I've forgotten if he's technical or... Well, since I filled up my kinship gauge, I can show this. So once your kinship gauge is full, you can perform a ride, which you can choose if you're going to go that route, to keep fighting on the circle here. Or you can use a kinship skill. Kinship skills are unique to the Monsties, as I said earlier. They have their flashy animations. They're basically your ultimates. My beloved Zamtrios. Getting fat. Where it basically does everything, and Ice Explosion. Just demo what they are. They are all that flashy, if not necessarily that And so yes, as you'll notice, I can see all 3 types on the head, and it only shows you what's good once you've done it once. Given how important that is to doing damage and yes, switching weapons or monsters is a free action in this, not something that's going to penalize you for years. Okay, so he's a power type now, shit. Yeah, and so like I said, like that, yeah, see, he gets extra attacks when raged. And you see how much that did. Now, he's a power type. Why did I do that? I chronically established that I know what's going on and then immediately forget what's going on. It's wonderful. I'm being sarcastic, but yeah. And so the downside is, of course, too, like using skills takes up kinship gauge stuff. Okay, so that one, and yes, some attacks you can't dodge, and will stun and whatnot. But all your skills take kinship gauge to do. So more often than not, you just won't bother because ults are better. Oh, is he back to normal? I didn't notice. Yes, he is. Story fights, like, that's inexcusable here. In story fights, it's more excusable that I didn't notice. And I'll cover the why of that later. But because they coat everything red, and then red is also how you tell they're raged. It's great. Because mechanics. But yeah, so it's basically, again, while I'm reading him, you know, and he's not raged, no damage is coming to me. And there's nothing he can do about it. He get mad, he get free attacks. Actually, my Nersilla's doing the right thing here, so we'll play through. We'll play through because I'll get my double. But yeah, and now he gets his free attack because he's raged. Given how much damage every successful attack does, you can see the problems with that. But as long as you're, you know, winning your head-to-heads, Rhydon will help mitigate that. It won't prevent it entirely, but it'll mitigate that issue. Of course, if you're fighting a boss fight where they've jacked the monster up, like this is just a regular old green Nargacuga. Oh, and of course there are QTEs. What QTEs happen depend on the monsters on both sides. It ranges from mashing X like that to beam struggles to yeah, I need you to not do that. I need to get Speed Monster out. But not that it matters because he's doing one of his AoEs first. But each monster... Yeah. I lost my train of thought. Shit. I'm sorry, guys. Where the fuck was I? Tried to recover. Failed. Lost my train of thought entirely. But, yeah. So, whether or not that you use the system and use it correctly is the difference between getting completely wiped by a regular monster for an area you're an appropriate level for. It should be noted. Again, I'm not here out of nowhere. I'm, you know, actually the level for this place. And if you lose... So if either you or your monster, note that, it's either or, die, you lose a heart. You have 3 hearts, which is nice. Yep, and he instant rages again, because of course he does. Get me Tiggy back out. But if you lose all 3, you get sent back to base. You lose nothing. Silver lining, you lose nothing except what you would have gotten from this fight. So like when you break apart, it drops an item. And he gets his free damage. Which, yeah. But he's weak to one of the 3 damage types. Like every part has its own. And then, yeah, so boom. Tiggy down to 7 health and there's nothing you can do about it. Because it only ever skips his first attack, not the second one. So, yeah. So either item usage, which I am always loath to do because I have RBG Hoarder Syndrome, or just sucking up the damage because you're stubborn. Okay. Nerscylla back out. He's not doing, he's doing one of his Bob Spartan stuff. Yeah. Okay, it's raged, but you know, so am I. But yeah, we're already coming into some of the gripes here. Again, I've dealt literally thousands of damage, and yes, you can skip. You can also fast forward in the battle too. It's in the upper left. I can't really see it because I've got some of my recording overlay over it. But you can always swap around to try and keep your health up. But this is my issue. Like, I've done literally thousands of damage to this thing when all it takes to completely obliterate my party is like 450. Like, one of my special attacks, one of my kinship attacks, if it had hit my party and they let you overlap into multiple lives, could have wiped everything I have. And I had to launch like 7 of them into the guy's face. And he's still standing. Like, the disproportionate between your health and the enemy's health is absurd in this game. Like, to the point where it's not even. Your monsties are not even on the same level, like, health-wise. And it's only because of, again, exploiting the mechanics bullshit that you even can stand on the same arena as the monsters you run into. It's kind of ridiculous if you actually sit and look at it. But you've already seen this stuff. Let me know in the comments if you want me to skip it in the future if I do more reviews like this, because I tend to just run it with as little editing as possible. Mostly just because I get mixed up when people edit so much. Like, I don't know, like, okay, well, you're in this party, like, that's, like, level 50 now, and then a second later, you know, all of a sudden it's a completely different party, level 20s. Is this earlier footage, or is this just a new party, or what? Like, I get confused by stuff like that. So I tend to just let everything that happens happen when I'm making a video. Normal? No. Alright, fine. We'll take the green Narg. I'm pretty sure that's what this is. Basically, if you aggro, again, as I demonstrated earlier, if you poke it enough, that monster will wake up and you have to fight it. Yeah, and then Humble Flying Wervenig. That prefix is based on what element it has, not like... It turns out that was a crap one. No, Humble is the code word for all neutral monsters, so monsters that don't do elemental damage. There's also, like, Burning for fire, Soggy for water, Frozen, so on and so forth. I don't know what the dragon one is. Pulsing for lightning, that's one of the odd ones, so on and so forth. But anyway, you can go back to your, when you go back to town, I probably could have skipped this entire nest. Sometimes there'll be no monsters, sometimes it'll be, you know, whatever's there. And if you run into a monster from behind, that's one of the things I wasn't able to demonstrate, but you get a back attack and a free round, basically, of damage to start with. No head-to-heads, no none of that. But still, free damage. Sinky, normal weight. Okay, that's gonna be, yeah, Reeks, 100% normal weight. I'll take it. I think it's purple Ludroth. If it's a Mizu, I'm gonna laugh myself sick for being wrong, because Mizu's actually one of the better monsters you can get here. Also, your knowledge of what monsters are strong and weak can be checked at the door. Because it is literally part of the story canon. This is mild spoilers. Yeah, it was a purple Ludroth, I thought so. Soggy Leviathan. because they tell you the genus and each genus, mind you, like Birdwerven, Leviathan, etc., has their own markings. Birdwervens like Velocidrome, Kutku, etc., are spotted with just a mishmash of spots. The Fanged Wervens are like jagged swirls. Yeah, Birdwerven, yeah. Flying Werven, yeah. Flying Wervens have the kind of tiger striping. Leviathan, there you see it's more of a wavy striping. Birdwerven, it's a collection of spots like that. But anyway, whenever you go to a town, be it starter town, neutral here, or, you know, Lucino, or even that Polico shelter that doesn't have all the facilities, and we'll cover that eventually as well. So yeah, anytime you fast travel, you'll get that little Easter egg. But yeah, inside every town you've got this prayer pot, which you can offer charms to give you different buffs. I've currently been mostly running finding charms, and they just go over time. Again, they tell you as it, like, either reduces purchase prices, increase sell prices, and you get trade-in items and stuff like that still. So, you know, you could already see the appeal there. And then a charm that recovers your health over time. I didn't know I had that. That's pretty nice. And as you offer charms to it, it levels up. So as you can see, mine's level 5. And every level you get a new prayer. Prayers are different from charms, whereas you can see the charms, like in the upper right, you can see how much money I have, and then what my charm does and how long it's currently lasting. Each new charm you put in there adds a half an hour to that time. If you go to the prayers, you know, you'll see, hey, like the finding prayer is basically the same thing, which does stack. So that would bring it up to a total of 14.5% increased chance for rare genes. Or things like training. XP gain increased by 2.2%. Not much, but again, like the training prayer at level 1 only does 1% more. And when you consider that at level 1, you're going out and fighting things and getting maybe 20 experience a battle, yeah, it adds up. So don't sleep on that. Give it a shit ton of charms as early as possible. Don't be afraid to overwrite your charms when you decide you need something else, because again, more charms go into this creepy mouth, the stronger it gets. Now, the quest board in this is just basically it's an extra as you're going through an area. So like there's some that are like, these are bosses. Some it's just like, kill this type of monster in this area. It's actually not even in this area. Like if you run into them elsewhere, it'll still count. Like Hermitars are the ones I'm thinking of, because I've seen them in like 2 or 3 areas. Regardless of where you kill them, as long as you kill enough of them, quest fulfilled. Always hit that up, because there's nice bonuses, including in some cases, you can't really see them here because if they're one-time only quests, but they'll also give you, do I have key items? Yes, these are like all the key items here. This is how you get your crafting. It doesn't matter if you know them before, like you knew before, like doesn't matter if you know the old style, because this has the old style potion setup where potion is an herb and a blue mushroom, not just an herb. If you don't have the recipe, it doesn't matter if you know it or not, you can't make it. And a lot of the secondary quests, some from the board, I've gotten a fair number from the board, but also you get them from villagers in town. So if you go down here, like you'll see these guys with the blue exclamation mark. They're side quest people. So they, somebody's going around town. Okay, this one's just going to be a run around town and harass people mission. That's not going to be a biggie. And so they'll give you things like shield give bottle caps was the reward for that one. Sometimes they give you skills like a sword and shield counter skill is the reward for this one. Where you just want to see a bone sword and shield. I'm not going to do that, but you know, don't need to tell him that. This is the bottle cap vendor. Mailings Incorporated. Basically, you can exchange bottle caps for... Go over here because you'll see, like... You can exchange them for, like, how to make a sleep knife, how to make traps, super whetstones, and then the blueprints that expand your stable. So you'll have more monsties. They'll let you get access to some weapons, I think, entirely, because I still haven't seen some of them, like the... I assume the cat gear is specifically from this, but like I haven't run into any Eodromes yet, but I could get the Eodrome Sword and Shield with bottle caps, so you can get gear a bit early and sometimes uniquely here. Like, but there's no need to. You'll run into, like, you'll be able to get them on your own anyway, near as I can tell. So I've mostly just been saving mine for upgrades that you need. And again, Smithy functions the same way you'd think. Yeah, again, check your stuff at the door. Like, Laggy is better than Diablos in this. Make of that what you will. Some monsters, like, yeah, Diablos is better than Legiana, which makes sense, to me at least. But, yeah, they're all... Everything you run into, you can make the gear of, even if you can't necessarily capture it at the time. Example, bosses, you won't be able to... And I don't think you can capture... I don't think you can get Celtis eggs or Celtis queen eggs, because that mechanic would be a little complicated to do. So... But you can still craft their gear. I'm wearing layered Celtis armor. My main armor is actually Diablos right now, I think. But... Anyway... More serious, every town and the Feline Shelter will have this stable. Here, you can hatch the eggs you've got. You can either hatch them one at a time or hatch all. They'll also let you know, like, what's the weight and what's the smell on them. Heavy, good smell. Let's go ahead and hatch one, for example. And when you hatch them, you'll get a brief period of seeing it as a baby. Like baby green Narg here. And then it immediately poofs up to full size. And... There's genes. I guess one has Divine Blessing gene, which is nice. Vicious. And then some genes are specific to species. Some are just randoms. We'll just go ahead and hatch them all real quick. So yeah, you get another Velocidrome. And... Yep. And baby Velocidrome. What skills you got? And they can be upgraded. So like this kin cost down. Reduces kinship charge. Cost of monster skills. Up 1. So like you see the star under it here, that means that, actually I could probably have my mouse over it for that, but that means it's basically been upgraded once, and we'll get into upgrading that in a second too, because it's complicated, but good. I'll probably put a TLDR link of what I think about it later. You also have your expeditions. Again, I have 2 slots right now. You unlock one partway through story, and then you can also get extra expedition slots through the bottle cap vendor. These are a way to just level up extra parties of monsties, as well as get some extra loot. You have options for both where you send them, and different areas want different monsters, or different elements will increase your success rates. They'll also tell you, like, you know, hey, here's the gather items, here's the monsters that show up in this area, so you might get some of their stuff. Here are the odds. Like, you could select your fields. Like, the only 3 I have right now are Hakolo, Alcala, and Laloska, which are the first 3 areas. And then you have a bunch of them. Balanced, which just balances on stuff. Thorough, which takes an extra bit. The default's 20, 30, but gives you more items and XP. Hasty, which gets less of each, but it's only 10 minutes, you know. EXP Enthusiast, which is basically focus on leveling up the monsties. Item Gatherer, blah, blah, blah. And of course, selecting what monsties you want on there. And then you just send them on the expedition, and then they'll be back whenever. There's also this rite of channeling. You unlock this midway through, I want to say. It's towards the... I don't remember if it's middle or end of the second area, but spoilers. I should probably mention at the start of this video that there will be spoilers. So yeah, spoilers. This is your spoiler warning, I guess. But basically, what it does is it lets you take a monster that you actually like, oh, I don't know, say my Nerscylla here, and play bingo. That's a very abbreviated way of saying it, but it's also true. Because you see, the way this works is actually, I could, for example, like right now my Nerscylla here, as you can see, has extra 100, basically does 110% normal damage that they would normally do. I don't know if that counts for defense or not as well, and that's it. Basically, by playing bingo on here, like, you can up damages and possibly defense, I don't know. And certain types, so technical attacks, which as a technical monster, that's great. Of course, if you do this, and I'm going to do this for demonstration, because it's a level 1 spare purple Gypsyroth I have lying around. That monster's dead now. I have ground him up into cocaine and had my Nerscylla snort it. Probably a bit of an excessive way to put it, but it's basically what you do. And it's what you do with your millions of extras. But remember, we love and respect our monsties here. Wink. Rainbow genes are nice because they function as the everything gene, where it's basically, as demonstrated there, you can, you know, get the technical power, speed, rock, paper, scissors bonuses, and then elemental bonuses. It counts as both. However, each and every gene does something. So, like, for example, with my Pukei here, like, the rainbow genes don't do dick other than being that. Things like, you know, this gene here gives you can actually pull it up, like, gives you the Roar active skill. So if I basically, and yeah, you can do Thunder Boost and Anti-Para, like, you can basically take these, and if you're feeling really crazy, like, for no reason, you can be like, I'm going to make this Pukei do thunder damage. Yeah, you can do that. Probably not as good as catering to its innate strengths, but it's a thing you can do, technically. But yeah, and that's basically what you're going to do with your millions of extras that you never use in your party. You're going to snort them, grind them into cocaine. Another thing you can do is with ritual items. So, like, as you can see, my Zamtrios has these slots that it will never use. You can get stimulants, so roid them, so they can get those slots open, which you can then inject with more Monsty Dust. I might as well call it that, because seriously, that's what it is. But yeah, doing that, you can effectively get more bingos, which up its stats even more, so on and so forth. And that's how you get your quote-unquote best monsters. With that in mind, this is also where you decide, you know, I want these in my party, I want those out of my party. You can check what their skills are. Like the Diablos, Monoblos line has Roar and Ground Dive, which is some of the navigation stuff. And so yeah, it's a very solid time sink, is how I'd describe this game. You go, you farm, but just be aware that the system is unforgiving, and if you're not willing to burn items, like when you're going through the desert area, I'm not going to say when that is, where it is, but where you run into things like Cephadromes, Plesioths, Diaboloses, whatnot, sonic bombs are mandatory. Stock up on those. Otherwise, you are going to be frustrated as all hell. I've already given the spoiler warning. I'll give it again. I'll post it at the start of the comments, the description, that this will be spoiler intensive. Just keep in mind. Yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, so apparently you need to leave and come back to these areas to refresh. I basically didn't come back once I did some of this stuff. And if I had waited to hatch those eggs, I could have finished that right now. But that's neither here nor there. So yeah, my thoughts thus far. Yeah, I could have followed that side quest, but not for this video. It's a good time sink. The system is simple but incredibly unforgiving, which makes fighting a monster the first time fucking terrifying. Cannot emphasize that enough, because if you don't guess correctly when assuming the monster's rock, paper, scissors stats, you will hurt. That said, there's no real consequence to losing a battle. Like, again, the only things you miss out on are the XP and whatnot from that battle specifically. If you'd already gathered a ton of eggs from the area, yeah, that silver is a side quest den, by the way. They are all color-coded. But if I gather 3 dens worth of eggs here, and then in the 4th one, a laggy catches me and takes me out, I still get to keep all my eggs. I don't lose anything, except for what I would have gained from that fight, and any items I used in that fight. There's also plenty of opportunities between fights to patch yourself up. As I'm sure you've noticed, I have a good amount of healing. Vital Essence regains hearts, so I have a ton of that lying around. Heart churros do the same thing, but can only be used in this in-between area, whereas Vital Essences can be used in combat. Don't be afraid to heal up in between battles. They give you plenty of supplies for that. They give you these easily craftable donuts that can only be used out here, and will actually have a quick heal button if you need healing to just use the donuts to heal your entire party. They basically act as minimal life powders in this area, and it'll just use as many as you need to get back to full health. And a lot of the time, progress, spoilers, I've found at least, relies a lot more on, like, if you're actually focusing on progressing and not, grabbing eggs or doing whatever, just don't fight monsters on the way. Dead serious. You will do a lot better for yourself if you're coming into that fight at full health and full hearts than if you're like 4 levels, like that'll make up 4 levels easy, honestly. And 4 levels is actually pretty tricky to get, as again, 23, 24 hours in this game, and my highest level is 30. Make of that what you will. So, when progressing, just gun straight for the boss. When you're taking it easy, when you're actually grinding, then take your time to do everything else. But as long as you're, sticking to Monster Hunter basics, that is, looting all the pickups you see, especially herb and mushroom pickups, you'll have more healing than you know what to do with. I hate doing it in combat because it's a waste of a turn as far as I'm concerned, because they're still going to hit you again at the end of it. As you've seen, when they're hitting you for 1/3 of your health anyway, whatever you healed probably doesn't matter. But that's just me. But yeah, go into boss fights at full health, read their gimmicks, take them out, adjust to the gimmick rapidly. Use it. It's simple, but unforgiving. You will get wiped if you're just like, okay, so he's resistant to sword damage. That means if I keep using a sword, it's going to take 3 times as long. And in the event of, like Green Narg there, who had 2 attacks when raged, you can't afford it to go 3 times as long. You will die 3 times. But, and again, if you ignore the disparity of your health versus the enemy's health, it's a great game. If you can't ignore it, like me, because it's just, I'm also dragging it front and center right now, which isn't helping, but it can be a time. It can be a time. Overall, if you like this sort of light, simple gameplay style, and you don't mind the spin the lottery wheel for monsters, that's the other downside is there's another mechanic that I should probably cover here called retreating. basically you need to use a paintball. Like, monsters that are catchable, the Monsterpedia is your friend. This is another thing. It tells you all the monsters you've encountered, what, whether or not they are capturable or acquirable. I'm using capturable because I'm using general, like, Pokemon terms here. But one thing you can do, I'm not editing, and this is already 50 minutes long, so I'm not going to show it here, but I'll describe it, is there's a retreat things. Like, so for this, while the Zamtrios is swollen because he actually cycles through when you're fighting him between his normal form, his ice armored form, and then his big boy form, swollen form, that if you break it, you'll boost his retreat rate. The base retreat rate is like 5% on every fight. Using a paintball jumps it by 60%. And then doing the extra requirement that they tell you here will jump it by like another 30. So basically 95%. And there's also charm skills and armor skills because they share that. And Monsty Genes, for that matter. That boost retreat rate. Those are the only way to guarantee a monster. So yeah, if I broke a Congolala's head with a hammer, that ups it. If a monster retreats, what that means is after you win the battle, it'll say so and so is retreating. Obviously, hasn't happened this video, but and then a den, like one of the regular dens here, except with an egg on top of it, will appear. It'll also be like highlighted in green on the minimap. So like basically take the Ever den signal, which is those big craggy looking ones on the minimap. Take one of those, make it a little smaller, but make it full green on the minimap. Will show up as that indicator. And the base den will have an egg on top, so one of these regular ones except with an egg on top. And it'll specifically say, like, if I got a, you know, green Narg drone, it'll say green Narg den. If you hop in there, it'll be the smallest den type with that monster, and you can only get that monster's eggs out of it. That's the only way to guarantee what monster you get. Outside of that, doesn't matter if it's a rare den, regular den. Well, Everdens do too. I shouldn't say that. Back up. So when you one of the other things with Everdens, you can only clear them once because they actually stay fixed. They're the only dens that do. And at the end of them, there will be a monster guarding the nest. And when you raid that nest, you will get one egg. The egg pile immediately disappears, and that egg is guaranteed to be whatever was guarding the nest. So if there was a, you know, a Tigrex guarding the nest, you get a Tigrex egg. Diablos, you get a Diablos egg. I've only found them at normal quality, and you only get one shot at it, though. So getting a monster to retreat is the better option if you're looking to farm that specific monster. But yeah, overall, not a bad game. It's, if you don't mind mobile game formats, because it feels like a mobile game, is how I describe it. It's a time sink. There is nothing you cannot solve in this game by putting a few more hours in. You get stuck on something, go back and grind. Or, you know, don't be me and be willing to actually use items. Like, I have a bunch of traps, I just don't use them. I have a bunch of... I used up my Sonic Bombs. That's part of why I was saying Sonic Bombs are mandatory in the desert, because I did actually use them. I used them up because the alternative is 3 rounds where you can't hit the enemy, so you're basically just stuck there doing nothing. It's not fun. It's not interesting. It's just a pain in the ass. Bring Sonic Bombs. Because that monster you can't hit can still hit you and will be hitting you. So, and typically does a super move when they get out of there, so watch out for that too. But it's a game of gimmicks. Learn the gimmicks, learn the system. System's one giant gimmick of rock, paper, scissors. Learn it, exploit it, keep your stuff ready, keep one of each damage type, just because sure, some monsters you can get away with having only one. But just be prepared. This game is rock, paper, scissors. That's it. Yeah, Kutku's head's weak to pierce. I still bring a hammer and a sword. Like, that's all there is to be said. And again, like Puke, you got body and tail, weak to slashing. Head, not. Head, probably weak to hammer. That just tends to be the thing AIs focus on, so I didn't have to worry about it much. Yeah, over the story you'll get AI buddies. I don't have any right now, but they help you out. But yeah, it's a good game if you don't mind the gimmicks. That's basically my final takeaway of it. And you don't mind sinking an ungodly number of hours into it. I've been streaming this thing every day since it came out for extended periods. Again, my Twitch will be in there below. So if you want to see me actually sit down and play this game, check it out there. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.